second Coastal Tourism / Local Services Summit. The original idea came from Wendy Patterson, who's the member for that lovely bit of the coast between Guy and Jeff Watson. No, actually, that's not correct, is it? Sorry, just below you, Guy, isn't it? Wendy's piece. Yeah. So that's the first mistake. I thought I would just begin by making a mistake in the content.
Long Horton Ward, Glenn. Long Horton Ward.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all very much indeed for attending this second Coastal Summit. We had a very good meeting the last time, and we picked up some key points from you all at that. Paul and his team, along with the tourism team, have been working together very hard, looking to see what we might be able to do for this season now coming. What we need to be doing in the sort of medium term as well, and that includes all sorts of things like improving cycling facilities, enforcement activity, and so on. So the intention is that Paul is going to give an outline presentation. Then we'll talk about perhaps some plans and things from Mo, who's going to lead for us this afternoon on the tourism side of things. What I would ask, if you don't mind, if we could maybe just keep questions until the end of the presentations, unless it's really, 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 really important, in which case, please put up your hand. But can you do it? Can you do it with the hand sign, which is along that bar? For those of you who haven't used this much, it shows where you can put your hand up, and that makes it easier for me to kind of see who wants to ask a question. So it'll be Paul, maybe a couple of quick questions, and then the tourism side of things, and then a general discussion, and we'll aim to finish between sort of 3:15, 3:30, something like that. Is that okay? Is everybody happy with that general plan of action? Okay, right, lovely. Well, thank you very much, Anita. Can I introduce Paul Jones? Paul is our Director of Local Services, which covers all the frontline services. A huge job, and he has spent a lot of time with his key staff looking at this, and so thank you, Paul, for all the work you've done on this, and over to you.
So thank you. What I'm going to do is just share the presentation and get that up. So if you just bear with me just for a moment while I do that. Are you able to see that okay on the screen?
Yes.
So, as Glenn says, we were obviously involved in the last summit and we've been working hard since then. So what I would like to start by saying is just obviously following the last session, that it was very clear there were some key outcomes that came from that collectively that we wanted to achieve for across the county as well as in the coast A and B. So the key objectives that we've been working and really providing that context as to our thinking are listed on this slide, which is really about trying to reduce the pressures that were experienced by the communities, both along the coast, but also in other parts of the county as well last summer, and trying to mitigate that as far as we can into the spring and summer of the coming holiday and visitor season. The other key thing we wanted to try and achieve is that we want to provide a safe and welcoming visitor experience. The tourism economy is really important to Northumberland, and we want people that come here to enjoy coming here. We want them to come back. So that's a really important key point as well. The other area that we're focusing on is that clearly we don't want to do things that fundamentally harm Northumberland. Northumberland's a beautiful location, so the things and the measures that we put in place have to be compatible with that. We want to make and retain Northumberland's unique nature and its visitor heritage, because fundamentally that's what attracts people to come here in the first place, and we want them to continue coming. And clearly all of that links into the desire to support Northumberland's economic recovery out of lockdown. Clearly it has been a particularly hard hit for the hospitality sector and the holiday sector in particular, and clearly this summer is important for that sector to try and bounce back, and the county as a whole to bounce back as well. So that kind of sets the strategic context that we've been working in. We've also made some kind of working assumptions as to how things might look in spring and summer 2021. So this again just aids our thinking in terms of what's required and what's needed. So the key things here are that clearly, I think even with the vaccination programme going well, that there will still be, all living with COVID, and the need for hands, face, space requirements and that social distancing. So it's still going to be a key, we feel, public health requirement that we have to ensure our plans are compatible with. We do expect visitor numbers to be high again. There's already restrictions on international flights. There will be people that are just concerned about going abroad, even if they are able to go abroad. So we do expect there to be a high demand for both staycation and just day trip type visits into Northumberland, and that camping and motorhome sites as well will be a high demand as a result of that. Sadly, I think when you get any large influx of visitors to an area, particularly if they're not people that generally come into the countryside, you will have a minority that display either inappropriate or poor behaviours. So we have to manage and mitigate and be prepared for that. We also expect that, given the fact that public transport has been constrained by COVID because of that hands, face, space and the social distancing requirements, that even when people are able to use public transport more, that a lot of people will be reluctant to do that. So there will be this increased dependency on the private car as the main means of transport, and that's something again that we have to try and mitigate and accommodate. And I think whilst normally you get really busy days, around bank holidays and within some of the key elements of school summer holidays, given what happened last year, the expectation is that pretty much any day, no matter what day of the week, if it's hot and sunny, it's going to be very, very busy like a bank holiday. So these are the kind of things that we've been looking at. We're also acutely minded that we can't plan for everything, so we will have to respond and adapt quickly to situations and work collectively across other organisations in a joined up approach to tackle things. And there are constraints as to what we can do as well. So there are planning and regulatory constraints, particularly in an AONB area. So we will be looking at some short-term actions just to tackle some of those issues as well. So what I want to go through now is just looking at what the key themes are that came out of the meeting back in November, and just really highlighting the things that we know that we definitely will be able to deliver for this spring and summer. That it will be a combination of both spring and summer. There's some things we can get in early, some things we'll be pulling out all the stops to get in early, other things we'll certainly be looking to get in for the key summer holiday period. So what I'm going to talk through is things such as the parking and the transport, public toilets, litter and waste, and motorhomes and caravans, to really highlight what we expect to be able to put in place, and then to allow the tourism team to talk about some of the longer term or medium term actions that will be taken forward to look at mitigation of tourism impacts longer term. So on the parking and transport front, what we will be developing and what we are developing is a county-wide approach with key partners, and there's some high-level meetings getting set up at the moment to work across a range of organisations, so not just within the OANB area but across the whole of the county. So that there's already meetings set up with some of our other coastal communities to have one-to-one discussions with them to go through and really put in place the best practice that came from this coastal summit and to apply that across the rest of the county. And that's fundamentally things such as tackling some of the transport issues, but also trying to attract resident or visitors to Northumberland, but then disperse them across the county more evenly, so that the benefits as well as the impacts of tourism are spread more evenly across the county. And some of that is involved in terms of improved travel planning. So we are looking at more dynamic information to be able to give out to the public so that they can make informed choices about where they go, how busy an area is before they travel, and they can decide where they vote with their feet as to where they want to go and what circumstances they're going to experience when they get there. We will be looking to still promote active travel, and clearly the more people can get out of cars and onto bikes or walking and things such as that is a really positive measure. And we will be trying to promote our public transport as far as we can within the constraints of COVID, because again, the more people can get onto that within safely, the better that is. We are conscious that in terms of parking enforcement, that was one of the key issues that came out of the summit and our own experiences last year. So we will be increasing our parking enforcement capacity and increasing the patrols and the number of people involved in that, and obviously having close liaison with the police if there are issues that the police have to deal with, as opposed to the civil enforcement of parking issues that we deal with. We will be looking to increase parking charges at some of the coastal car parks as well to help manage and demand and support further investment in facilities for visitors. We'll also be looking to implement some new on-street parking restrictions in those locations where we've already been through that detailed consultation exercise. The community and the local members and the local parishes are on board with those proposals. So we'll be putting in parking restrictions in places like Bamburgh at the Winding, on Ingram Road and Lindisfarne Avenue, and in places like Boomer Village and Beale on the approach to the causeway. And these are things like double yellow lines, single yellow lines and residents only parking restrictions. We'll also be developing the new car park in Amble Town Centre. That's going to be towards the middle to the back end of the summer, we expect, when that will come actually into play. And we are going to be consulting over firm proposals that we believe are deliverable for Boomer as well. The actual delivery of those really depends on the outcome of the consultation. The timescale will be set on that, but we do have firm proposals to take forward at Boomer as well. We are looking at a new road configuration at Craster and have been in dialogue with the parish council over that, and we expect to implement that for this season as well, that we hope will reduce traffic going directly into the village, and that will help. And we're also working with Craster to look at some seasonal parking overflow on the fields adjacent to there to support that as well. We have some proposals to take forward increased on-street parking capacity at Embleton and Sea Lane at Dunstan Steads. And we'll be having that further dialogue with the parish council and the local member regarding the detail of that when we've just finalised the actual plans. Those are currently getting costed up at the moment. And again, we expect to have those in place for this summer. Where we can't get everything in place, we will be looking at the use of temporary no parking cones. This isn't something that we would do lightly. You know, we don't want to litter the whole of Northumberland countryside with lots of the plastic parking cones. So we will do that where there are particular issues where we know that there needs to be, you know, protected farm entrances and things such as that, or where we're getting concerns raised on a more reactive basis. We also want to continue working and really need the support of the town and parish councils and some of the landowners to look and take forward seasonal field type temporary parking arrangements. There have been relaxation to some of the general development order legal constraints on that. So rather than just 28 days now, you can legally do that without planning consent for up to 56 days. So that's something, again, we would be really keen to work with town and parishes and landowners to try and progress that where it's appropriate to do that. And we've already got them out across the county, but we have variable message signs or VMS signs at key locations, and that's just something that we can dynamically do to help traffic and move traffic around the county and alert people to any issues. In terms of public toilets, clearly one of the key things that we want to maintain is just access to public toilets. It's a really key issue when you've got lots of visitors that need to be able to use toilet facilities. We have maintained those right through the winter. We haven't put in place enhanced cleansing arrangements and site risk assessments and one in, one out to ensure people are safe and they are using them. And where we do need additional capacity, we will put in temporary portaloo arrangements to support that. What I would say is, in terms of the enhanced cleansing, it has been really, I think, well received in terms of the comments we've had back about the cleanliness of the public toilet facilities in Northumberland, and that's something that we would certainly want to take forward as we're going forward in post-pandemic as well. The works that we'd already commissioned at Holy Island and Sea Houses are going well and ongoing, and that's a significant investment in two of our key tourism destination public toilets. So those do include what's called change in places disabled provision, which is really like an enhanced disabled access provision that enables really severely infirmed and disabled people to be supported to get out and about and to have days out. So it's a really positive move, and we expect both of those facilities to be available. I think it's the Sea Houses one in early April, and then the Holy Island into May. So again, both ahead of the key summer season. There was a problem last year in the public loos in Craster where we had some drainage issues that were causing us some significant concerns, and there's work in progress currently to tackle that, so that's going to be resolved ahead of the summer as well. And I think the big, and it's albeit a longer term issue, that is within the council's capital programme, and it's on the back of the comments that have been made and the desire from the administration to make investment in the tourism infrastructure. But there is a proposed £1 million capital investment for a multi-year programme to tackle the public toilet estate across the county. So that's addressing backlog maintenance issues in our toilets, as well as redevelopment improvement for some of those priority sites. So again, we'll try and get some of that work done in advance of the summer, but we won't be able to clearly spend a whole £1 million in the next couple of months. That's a longer term programme of activity as well. Littering was a big issue, and I think primarily just because of the sheer volume of people that were in the Northumberland coast area over last summer. And what we're doing at the moment is just gearing up our resources and our staff and resources and equipment to enable us to deliver an increased frequency of litter collection activity during the peak summer season. So that's increased emptying of litter bins, more staff on the ground to litter pick where there are problems. And even if that doesn't wholly resolve the problem, and we're still having spikes on particular times, we will look at providing temporary litter bins, which are basically just wheel bins alongside the existing litter bins, just to provide that additional capacity, so you're not getting overflowing bins all the time in particular locations if that is continuing to be a problem. It was raised at the last meeting that there was a particular concern around dead seals on some of the beaches. I know this winter season's been particularly harsh, I think, on the seal population. We have had quite a few dead seals washing up, unfortunately, on the coast. This is something that we've been working closely with our team in the ONB, and we have now agreed a protocol around the collection of dead seals that will be encouraging other landowners to sign up to and to participate in as well. That basically will ensure that the County Council on our beaches and the ones that we manage and control tackling that promptly and getting dead seals off bathing beaches and public access locations if it's safe to do so. Littering and just that general anti-social behaviour is something that we will be continuing our dialogue with and liaison with Northumbria Police, and that's something that we've already had some good dialogue with, but we are going to be having further dialogue to look at a cross-county approach to some of those key issues and working with the police colleagues around some of that in terms of reporting and that much better joined up approach. And linked to that is some of our enforcement. We do have environmental enforcement officers that deal primarily with littering and dog fouling offences and fly tipping, and we will be increasing the number of patrols along the coast to tackle some of those issues over the summer. And that's part of a wider campaign in terms of just looking at anti-littering education and awareness and targeting that in a respect, protect, enjoy type message over the summer months. On the fly camping and motor caravans front, again, we've been working with colleagues in the ONB area. We have now agreed what we're describing as a motor caravan protocol. And fundamentally on this, we recognise that particularly the use of motor caravans or motorhomes is an increasing trend. It's been escalated with the pandemic. There isn't sufficient locations for all these people to go into formal campsites. And there is a whole, I think, group of people that have those type of vehicles that don't want to go into those kind of facilities anyway. So we're looking at all of our car parks. We're going through a process to say, would it be acceptable to have a contained overnight stay where basically you sleep in the vehicle but you don't have all the paraphernalia outside of the vehicle for a single night as a transit type activity? Is it suitable to do that at that location or is it not? And we're going through a process currently just internally reviewing the car parks along the coast in particular to identify those which we think that would be suitable and those which clearly wouldn't. And once we've gone through that process, and we've just about completed that now, we'll then be having that further dialogue with town and parish councillors for those sites where we consider it might be possible and might be suitable to allow people to stay overnight. And where there's an agreement over that, we will be looking to undertake a pilot scheme this summer on a few of those locations to really put that into effect and provide some additional capacity. So basically we're trying to manage the visitor numbers of the people that are using those types of vehicles, directing them to where they're not going to cause issues for the local community or the environment, and where they can be managed better to enable us to do that. Where it's not suitable, we'll also be undertaking additional enforcement activity to really just drive those positive behaviours. So if you can go there, but you're not going where you shouldn't be, basically. As part of the overall approach to just trying to improve the visitor facilities as well, we have planning consent and we will be implementing that for a new small caravan and campsite within the Druridge Bay Country Park, which is just outside the ONB, but will help on that, and there is some proposals that we're just looking at now for a feasibility for a motor caravan stay facility as part of Amble Braid car park, just on the outskirts of Amble. I'll now hand over to Maureen McAllister, who's just going to talk through about some of the longer term plans in terms of destination management and the things that the tourism team have been working on as well. So thank you, and over to you, Maureen.
Thank you. Just to sort of underpin some of the stuff that Paul said, obviously we needed to have a joined up plan to respond to the needs of the 2021 season based on what we faced last year. So one of the things that Paul and I are also working on is a plan to bring together key stakeholders, just those that are stakeholders within the destination and industry to address these challenges that are happening across Northumberland. So we're hoping to have a high level meeting and that will be to respond to the issues in 2021. And then, so if we do come up with a policy around motor caravans, it's something that we can then use in other areas and with other stakeholders, for example. The second stage is the longer term plan. We're working on a 10-year destination management plan at the moment for the county, so that we can actually start to assess these changes over the coming years. We're working with a series of sector groups, and we'd really like to engage some of you as well in the place development side. So if I can contact you separately, or you can contact me to get involved with us in how we look at what the priorities are moving forward, because we're being reactive now, naturally, but what we want to be able to do is be proactive in the future in how we can develop Northumberland to be able to respond to the changing needs of visitors and also to protect the communities and the natural beauty of the area. So we're currently doing a product audit. We're currently working with sector groups. Again, we'd really like to work with you. And further on from that, we'll be looking at action planning and agreed areas of responsibility so that we've got some firmer plans in place to be able to respond more effectively to the changes that are going to be affecting Northumberland over the next 10 years, proactively as well as reactively. Have I got another slide, Paul? I don't know. Thank you. So in terms of communications, we, as I've just said, we want to bring together a high level meeting of strategic partners and also their heads of communication so that we can develop a joined up communications plan that the industry can use, that town and parish councils can use, to share the same message about how we, where we're busy and where there may be issues, the messaging around the respect, protect, enjoy, and also the countryside code messaging that DEFRA are developing. So we're hoping to have one joined up communications plan that all stakeholders can refer to. We obviously want to promote more active travel and public transport where we can, but we also want to have more dynamic visitor information. So the new website we have means that particular places can update their information in real time to let people know that it's busy there and to try another part of the county. And we also have a shared message and hashtag on social media, and that we will encourage visitors to monitor and follow so that we can identify areas where there are pressure points and where we would suggest people not to go to at a particular time. So we'll be working on shared communications, but also messages that anybody that is active within the local area can share, knowing that it's a clear message, but it's a message of welcome and support rather than us being too strict with visitors and passing on the wrong message. So we're hopefully going to be getting that out by the middle of March. We should have something together that people can start using. I think that's me, Paul. Good.
Lovely. Thank you very much, both of you. That's great. So now the floor is open to anyone who wants to ask any questions or make any points from what you've heard. And the first one is Les Robson.
Hi, it's just in relation to the communication side of things. Obviously, looking at that, it mentions about the website and the like. Has anyone thought about some type of app that can be developed, that can be downloaded, and then you can push message the messages across to people about like car parks being full, stuff like that?
No, but we could, because on the website we actually have a push messaging system that we can actually start to use. But we also wanted to be able to do things by the digital platforms. But there's nothing to stop us looking at the potential of that, but actually using the existing digital channels that we have. Perhaps we could talk separately about any channels that you have or any ideas that you have to see what we could develop.
Yeah, we've got the NP alert system, which potentially could be utilised and would be part of our suggested conversations with our head of communications department.
Can we talk separately then?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Super. I'll drop my email address into the chat.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, great. Okay, next is, I mean, if everybody just has a look at those questions, and then maybe, Paul, if you could remove them so we can see each other better. So, you know, what else do you think we need to be talking about? Is there anything specific that you need that we may not have touched on? This thing that Ian talked about last time about the seasonal field overflow. Anything new that's cropped up in the last month or two or three? And then would you be interested in receiving regular updates on visitor levels? And so I think if we just remove that now, that's perfect. Thank you, Paul. So Guy Renner-Thompson. Guy is County Councillor for the Bamborough area and covers sea houses and Bamborough and other parts of the coast. And Guy, you had a busy summer last year, didn't you?
Yeah, we know we had a very busy summer, Glenn, but I think a lot of what's been talked about in the presentation will help. The temporary field parking, I think, is excellent. Everyone seems to know about it, but we just need to coordinate it a bit better. The bins thing, yeah, getting them emptied more often would help. We have a bit of an issue that people are talking about in sea houses, where in the middle of sea houses over the years we've put in more and more bins, and now it just doesn't look very nice because the whole of the middle of the village is surrounded by some bins. So maybe if we could do some design work on how we're going to make that a bit nicer, rather than just keep putting more and more bins into the same area. Maybe we could put them somewhere else or have less but bigger ones, something along those lines.
Paul?
Yeah, more than happily have some dialogue directly with yourself and the parish council over that, because I do appreciate what you're saying. I think that just the high proliferation of chip shops in sea houses is one of the key issues, isn't it? And providing the capacity for that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one action point coming up. Is anyone taking a note of these? Is Carol in this call, or maybe? Yeah. Okay, so thanks for that, guys. So the next one is Wendy Patterson. Then I've got Jeff Watson and then Adrian. So Wendy first.
Thank you, Glenn. I just wanted to bring something up which was mentioned at Craster Parish Council meeting last night, and that was cyclists. They have nowhere to park their bikes, and what they're doing is just propping them up in the car park. And so I just wondered if it was something we could look at for some of the villages which get a lot of tourism and cyclists, whether or not we could provide that kind of facility.
Yeah, we can certainly have a look at cycle parking provision. So that's something that we're really keen on providing generally. And to be fair, the car park should have that in them already. So if there's a lack of capacity at Castor in particular, we'll happily have a look at that.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, good. And also, if anybody else feels that they need a similar bit of kit, will you perhaps raise that this afternoon? So Jeff Watson. Jeff is the County Councillor for the Amble and Walkworth area and has been very active in getting car parking and other things sorted out for the visitors there. Jeff.
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, I'm here as the Parish Council representative, so I'm going to be very local in my discussion here. The Beach Road car park up by the toilets, Paul, in Walkworth. It's a very, very popular car park, as I know we all know, and it's had a lot of issues last year with camper vans. Now, we have signs up that says no camper vans, but actually, I don't think we do anything about that. So I'm hoping that with the extra enforcement we put on this year, we will try and do that and make sure that you know, the odd ticket or two is put on. I know it is very, very difficult for our people to be able to do that because it's not sufficient to find a vehicle parked there. They've got to actually prove it's been overnighted. So they have to go, I believe, very early in the morning. But, you know, I'm not saying we have to do that every day, but just once or twice and the word would get out. Otherwise, we might as well take the sign down, is my view. I mean, we are trying to tackle this in other ways, but that is something that I think we could do straight away. And I would also make an appeal that is such a popular site. You know, I mean, your man up there, Gary, came up with me one day. We were there looking, and he says, you know, there's more cars here than there was at Druridge Bray. And I think that just shows how important this car park is, and I just don't think we pay enough attention to it. So that's my plea from walkers.
If I could just come back onto that, Chair, and say clearly mentioned within the presentation, we've agreed a protocol with the AONB team as to where from their perspective in terms of the impact on communities and the landscape and the like, would it be sensible and suitable for, or sensible and suitable, I think is probably a good description, so it doesn't conflict with local residents and things such as that for overnight stay. But when we talk about overnight stay with camper vans, it's not to make a car park into a camping site. It's to have people sleep inside a vehicle, not to have deck chairs and barbecues outside of the vehicle and all the other paraphernalia that sometimes people do, to have that as a self-contained activity. So basically just parked up overnight and just happen to be sleeping in it in the vehicle. We think there are a number of locations where that would be permissible, but we need to manage the numbers at those locations, and we need to see if that is something that we can, you know, do in a constructive way. And that's why we're looking to take that forward as a measure, but to have the dialogue with those town and parishes and the local members in those areas so that they're aware of those proposals and can feed into those proposals before we actually make any announcements as to where that might be. What I would say though is that locations that clearly have a public toilet that aren't overlooked by residential properties are good locations. That if they're on the fringe of a town, you get the benefit of people then coming into the town for you know, use of the cafes and the restaurants and things such as that of an evening, so you get an economic benefit out of that. But as part of that approach, there has to be enforcement as well, because there's no point in encouraging people and requiring them to pay to park up somewhere overnight if you can just do it free of charge further down the road and no one says anything. So it is that balanced approach. It is difficult in terms of enforcement because, as you rightly say, you have to be able to get there and demonstrate that they've actually slept in the vehicle. So you have to get them in the pyjamas, still in the vehicle, basically. So, you know, that is difficult, but we will have an additional staffing resource available to support that activity as well. Last year, we had over 24 fixed penalty notices issued for overnight stays in our car parks. So it is something that we were enforcing last year, despite the difficulties. And it's something that we will certainly be looking at the signage and tackling that on a more even keel this year in terms of both the promotion and the enforcement as a combined approach.
Thank you, Paul. And can I just add that I don't know whether we've actually mentioned it already, but the difference in the cleanliness of the toilets this year has been phenomenal. You know, I've always used to having complaints about toilets being smelly, not to be too delicate about it, in Amble and in Warkworth, and this year I don't think I've had one. And the operator that you've got working in my area is doing a first-class job, and that shows you actually it's not so much perhaps about upgrading the toilets, but just keeping them clean is a real big issue. So thank you very much for what they've been doing this year.
Marvellous. Thanks very much. Adrian, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Glenn. First of all, I'd just like to say that I welcome all the proposals that have been put forward. I do recognise, though, that many of them will take some time to implement, and we won't see the results this year. But if we've got a 10-year plan for communications and for dealing with visitors and preparing for them, then at least we're doing something to deal with all the issues that we are aware about. Glenn, as you're aware, a number of residents in Boomer have written to you recently because myself and the residents are very, very concerned about what's going to happen this summer. We don't have any new off-street car parking, and I'll come back to what Paul said a few minutes ago. This week it's been half term. The existing car park has been full from on the better days from midday to about 2 p.m. And that illustrates the fact that once this lockdown finishes, particularly Easter and onwards, we're going to be inundated. And I think the term is overrun. We're going to have large numbers of visitors with their vehicles turning up. It's going to cause congestion. It's going to cause residents difficulties because where they don't have their own parking places, those will be taken by visitors, and it's very unfair on them. And the grass verges are going to be ploughed up and damaged. So we got a real problem. Very pleased to hear that there is going to be some yellow lines put down, but those are to do with road safety, which we asked for last year, and where we've got cones at the moment. And the result of that, which is essential for road safety, but it's going to result in the traffic, the vehicles that were parked in those places parking elsewhere in the village. So in a way, it's not helping. But okay, we've got to put at least we're doing something about road safety issues. I'm very pleased to hear as well that you now have some proposals on additional off-road car parking. I haven't heard about those, and it's only 4 days since we had a parish council meeting and nothing was mentioned. So I do hope that the parish council is going to hear before residents are given an opportunity to vote on that. But again, that's good, and I do recognise that these things take time. You cannot implement a new car park, off-road car park in 10 minutes. We do need, I think we're going to need temporary parking, no parking cones. Where we deploy those, I think we need to work with you on that. I do think as well we need some temporary field overflow car parking. I have an idea where that could be, but again, we need to work with you on that to approach the landowner and things like that. I think the things that Maureen was suggesting, share communications real time, I think that's a very good idea. I suggested something like that at the earlier summit, and it will help if we can real time make the centre aware that there's issues here, or the car park's full or whatever. So I think that's good to have, and I'm sure it can be developed. The communications plan, I think, is essential, and developing things like sustainable tourism, it should be one of the things that we're really pushing. So pleased to hear a lot of things that have been said, and I'd like to have more details about what you're proposing for Boomer. Thank you.
Can I, before I bring in Paul, can I just say that we've actually met 2 or 3 times with Wendy and Paul and other officers over the last month or 6 weeks, just to see what we might be able to do to catch this season that would meet with the approval or probable approval of the majority. We do have some money put to one side, so we are taking it seriously. We will do something in Boomer. The problem is that whatever we do, it's got to meet with the sort of, not everyone being in favour, but the vast majority being in favour. And so far, we had a problem getting there, but I think Paul may be able to tell you where we've got to now and what we might be then asking residents, parish council, for their views on. So I promise you, Adrian, we have not been sitting doing nothing. We have been working on this as hard as we can. We all fully understand the problems, particularly in Boomer, and we do want to get it sorted. And you know, all I can say is Wendy and others are working as hard as they can. But Paul, over to you. Can you update Adrian, particularly as far as Boomer is concerned? then?
Yeah, I think clearly we have had the dialogue and the consultation around the traffic restrictions in terms of WL lines to address some of the safety issues caused by inconsiderate parking, and those will be put in place for the Easter break, and we're gearing up and pulling out all the stops to do that. In terms of the off-street parking provision, we have been progressing dialogue on that, and we will be coming to your good selves with the details of that. We do consider there are now firm proposals that we believe are deliverable there. We then clearly need to get the buy-in for that overall approach from both the parish council, and then to have that as a consultation activity with the local residents. As Glenn says, though, the difficulty with all of that is just one of timescale, because anything that's a permanent feature will need to go through a full planning consent process, which does take time, and that comes back to what I said at the start of the presentation, that there are some things just because of the regulatory constraints, and really the fundamental issue about not having a knee-jerk reaction and delivering something that the whole community wants and values and will be good for the area longer term as well. So we certainly believe that there's proposals that fit that bill, and we'll have that dialogue with yourselves. If there's things we can do in the short term to help ease this summer, and I think the key one there is that seasonal field parking, again, we're more than happy to support and have a dialogue. We do recognise that the town and parish councils in particular have a key role to play in that. You're the people that are on the ground, you've got the relationships with the local landowners, you know where is likely to be more suitable in terms of the just general ground conditions and the visual impact and the accessibility of farmers' fields and things such as that. And if we can support and assist that through provision of signage or provision of some dialogue or stoning out entrances, we're more than happy to have that dialogue. But we want you, if you've got suggestions and you want to take the lead on that, we're not going to stop you. By all means, crack on, and we'll support you as far as we can.
Okay, I think we've got a meeting next week, Adrian, haven't we?
Yes, there is one, Glenn. Yes, can I just come in back in and make a quick comment, please?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do recognise we've got to have the support of the community. That's absolute base. But once we've identified, if we jointly with the county council and the estate and the councillors particularly identify a way forward, then we've got to sell that. We've got to sell it, and we've got to work together to sell those proposals rather than just sitting back and letting public opinion go whichever way they want. We should be trying to shape public opinion because it's so important, and that hasn't been happening here. So I'd just like to put that forward, and and we do need to work together very closely. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Adrian, that's why we're meeting again next week. I think by then we'll have a little bit more depth of discussion, if we can, specifically around Boomer next week, if that's okay.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, no, point taken there. Next is Sean and then Barbara. Sean. Sean, I'll come back to you. Barbara Brooke.
Hello. I was just hi, Bamborough Parish Council. I just wanted to ask. We think that we may well be able to get another field from a landowner around Bamborough for the extra overflow car parking. And if we are successful with that, obviously I've heard what Paul said about NCC being able to support us, which is great. But I wonder whether we could have help with signage, because as Paul will know, that we have used the Glebe Field for 28 days in previous seasons, but the signage for people to find this car park is not very good. So it'd be a great idea if we could have some kind of signage, and also for the other car park, hopefully, that we will be able to obtain. And the other question is, I'm not sure sort of by law whether we're able to do this, is whether we could have a supply of no parking cones, so that if we do have a problem in the middle of the village, that somebody responsible could you know, put a few cones out, but I don't know whether that's not allowed because of various regulations.
So in terms of the parking and the directional signs, if you're after things like A-frame signs that say overflow parking this way, we'll happily look at providing those and get those made up and make those available to people on requirement. In terms of the use of parking cones, there are always issues about people working on the highway in terms of safety, and obviously lane cones out if people are potentially putting themselves at risk isn't something that we're overly comfortable with, and in terms of being able to enforce it, we need to know where they are as well in terms of our enforcement teams, but we will be able to deploy those at short notice, and you know, if there are particular issues, we'll get them out as and when they're needed. So we are looking at I think getting quite a big stock of plastic cones ahead of the summer to have them dotted around the county at key locations.
Thank you very much.
Is that okay, Barbara? Okay. I mean, that's something you can liaise with Guy about as well. Is Sean there? Sean?
Yeah, hopefully. Can you hear me?
Yes, hear you.
Good, excellent. Right. Thank you. Yeah, it's Sean White. I'm chair of Almouth Parish Council. Might be a little bit late, but I just wanted to thank Paul actually, because this time last year in the first lockdown, we did have one of these movable electronic signs at the entrance to the village which said beach closed, toilets closed, which I think did help. And if it's possible to organise that in real time going forward, that I think would be a great advantage. We've got one at the entrance to the village at the moment saying stay local, but I sense that whereas historically the beach car park tends not to be full for very many occasions during the year, I sense that may well change a great deal this year. So again, if we can have signs to warn people that coming into the village is not a good idea because there's nowhere to park, could be quite helpful. And one enforcement, I think, is also an issue I'll be very much in favour of, increased enforcement, but I think that is on the list of things to do this year, but we would welcome that very much. And finally, just if I could just put in a plea for the Almouth toilets, which are obviously open at the moment. It's not a cleanliness issue, it's more just the actual infrastructure is starting to look extremely shabby, and crumbling walls, crumbling plasterwork. And I just put a plea for this £1 million, I think was mentioned earlier on, is going to be available to improve toilets in the area, whether Almouth could be on that list.
Paul?
I think it's fair to say that we recognise that the facility at Almouth is, if you're being kind of a bit tired and in need of a bit of TLC, so we'll have a look at that. What I would say though is that in terms of just the backlog maintenance, we've already had surveys done of all of the toilets just to understand what maintenance requirements are, just in terms of the fabric of the building, the decor, any damaged appliances and things such as that. That programme alone starts racking up quite a cost. So what we're looking to do is prioritise and where we start that kind of like repair and maintenance activity. What we don't want to do is undertake repair and maintenance activity if there's actually a plan to do a full kind of refurb and enhancement and a potentially enlargement of some of the facilities as well. So we're just going through that process at the moment to try and pull together that programme of activity, which will be, like I say, a multi-year programme, but tackling some of the priorities as quickly as we can.
Okay, thanks very much.
Is that okay, Sean, or would you like to come back on any of that?
No, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. I've got Jeffrey, Adrian, Sean, and Barbara still have hands up. Are they previous or are they current? Please feel free to come in again if you want to. Jeffrey Watson. I can't hear you.
I'm desperately trying to find the take hand down system and I've just found it, so I'll take it down. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. So next is Martin, Craster Parish Council.
Hi, Glenn, Paul,
Hi.
everyone. Thank you very much for inviting us to this. I don't know if you're aware, but Beadnell Parish Council are currently trying to organise the various parishes along the coast to create a shuttle bus. Now, hopefully that will progress, and hopefully County Council will support all the parishes with that. What I would say is that I don't know about other parishes, but we have not got anywhere for coaches. Not that that is necessarily going to be an issue this year, but certainly going forward, if we have a coach coming and dropping off an awful lot of people into an area, if there isn't a parking space for them, which there isn't at Crasta, there's nowhere in the parish that is possible to have a coach parking spot. Where do they go? Is there any provision where we can suggest maybe to the coach firms that instead of them delivering tourists to a specific location, moving on, delivering them to the next, that maybe it could be done along the lines of use the shuttle bus, so have a coach facility to drop off at the end of the shuttle bus, and the coach then goes to the other end of the shuttle bus route, and it would reduce the issue of, as I say, coaches in all the various locations.
So I think coach parking is a really difficult one, Martin. We have engaged with the coach and the travelling tourism industry and looked at that, particularly in places such as Berwick, where they were getting a lot of coach travel going through on the way into Scotland, for example. When you start talking about locations such as Crasta, when we were looking at developing the extension to the Crasta Quarry car park, that was one of the issues that was raised then, and obviously, you know, we were successful in securing the additional capacity within the quarry car park. If we'd put any coach parking in there, you wouldn't have got any additional car park capacity. You'd have actually reduced it quite significantly, because the turning circles that are required for those, you know, larger vehicles is horrendous in terms of the amount of space they take up. We had looked in around the Crasta area as part of an exercise to see if there was any other locations that could potentially just be used up as like a layover type area, but again, we're unsuccessful in that. So I think we'd need to have further dialogue with the tourism industry to say, is there a demand for coach travel and coach parking into these areas? I think the idea of looking at more use of public transport and some of that more localised transport is probably a better solution, given the nature of the infrastructure requirements that coach travel requires along the coast. But that's something that we can take forward as a longer term measure, I think.
Okay, are you okay with that? Do you want to come back on that, Harry?
Yeah, as I say, it was just whether or not if the shuttle bus scheme that Beadnor is looking at, whether or not that could be looked at as a way of supporting that. That was all.
So we'll happily get our transport colleagues to have be linked into that discussion. Obviously, I think the public transport network and operators are struggling at the moment because they're limited to having around about 40% of the normal seats filled, and are struggling to fill those at times. And clearly there's a concern from both our and their experience as well, that if we start promoting public transport too heavily whilst there's still those restrictions in place, we don't want people being stranded if they're unable to address the capacity that then comes in their way. So that is something that, you know, it's striking a fine balance, I think, at the moment, and it's not an easy one, but more than happy to have the dialogue.
Yeah, thank you. That's fine. Thank you.
So these points that everyone is making will all be picked up, and we will come back to you on them. Is that the way we're going to leave it, Paul, for the action points today? Yeah. Okay, Terry, hello.
Hello, Chairman Embleton Parish Council. I'd just like to make the point that we have the two problem areas, one down Sea Lane and one towards Dunstanstead. And we've had a task force from the Parish Council working for the last month. Their brief really was to try and come up with something that would reduce last year's chaos, was acceptable to the residents, and was something that we felt NCC might be able to do relatively quickly. We're almost there. It's been a difficult route, but we're almost there. I hope on Monday night at the parish council meeting we shall receive official approval. We would then like to put it to Paul and his group, and I hope that this could be fed in, because we have consulted the locals. We do think it'll work. We do know the ground, and really it's just a matter of how quickly that Paul's group can react. But I think we have a solution at least. So, you know, maybe we can work together. Thanks.
Okay.
I think, Terry, the team has had some dialogue with your good self already. So I think we've already been undertaking some design work around the top of Sea Lane, where the road there is much wider, to see what the optimum configuration of safe parking could be in that location, just to manage the space better and to make it safer for people to park in there. And also on Dunstan Steads, just to look at the highway that does run down there, to say, is there verge hardening works that we could do that basically would avoid some of the damage and again better utilise the space that is available without creating any unsightly impact. And that's something that we're more than happily have further dialogue. We're looking at some of the designs and costings of that, and we'll tie that together with your own thinking and have that further dialogue. More than happy to do.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? I just hit on something now, because it would be wrong of me not to mention it. But in this year's budget coming up, we are proposing, it's not decided yet, but it's proposing to increase the car parking charges on some car parks, mainly because I don't want to see services cut. So raising a bit more income is much better than you know, cutting jobs and cutting back on services. So it was just to let you know that obviously we will continue to have, and I think I'm right in saying this, Paul, we continue to have the same situation for local people as we currently have now, in terms of the arrangements for them for short-term parking, like sea houses, for example. Am I right in saying that? But we want to continue. It's basically the arrangements will stay as they are, but we will be increasing the charge on those most popular car parks. A, because we think, from what we've picked up, that, you know, people expect to pay for parking in really popular places like that, but mainly because I do not want to cut back on services, and I'd rather ask our visitors to pay a little bit more for car parking. So I just didn't want this meeting to go by without just raising that. That is a proposed part of the budget, which is going to be looked at on next week.
So in terms of that, where there's currently first hour free parking, that would be retained, depending on what happens with the council's budget setting process next week. If there's if the budget is passed on that, the intention would be that would be effectively notifying and writing to those areas that would be affected by any change in parking charges, so that you're aware of that and can feed into the process prior to those charges actually being confirmed through the formal means. So there's an opportunity to feed into that process and to influence that.
Okay, thank you. Barbara. Barbara, you're on mute there. Sorry, Barbara, you're on mute. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Barbara, you're on mute. Can anybody hear Barbara, or is it?
No, she's on mute.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Barbara, if that's okay. Oh, there you are now. There you are. Action.
Right. Just want to, sorry about that. I just want to say that when the car parking charges came in, unfortunately, Bamborough lost out on the first hour of being free. And as being chair of Bamborough Parish Council, if our charges are going to go up again, is there any chance that NCC could look at the first hour being free?
You're better when you're on mute, Barbara. Paul, could we look at that?
As I said, depending on what happens with the budget process, we will be writing out and detailing what the proposed tariff structures are. That's the opportunity at which we'll take back and consider any comments that come back through that process before the tariff structures are finalised again. So by all means, if you have views and comments such as that, that's the opportunity to make that heard.
We did ask that the last time, Paul.
Well, look, can we leave it that Guy will drop me a line as well next week, and let's get this blinking budget through, and then we will have a discussion about it. We can't promise anything, but I promise you that we will meet to discuss it, Barbara.
Thank you.
Guy, will you drop me a line sometime after the budget meeting, and we'll get together with Paul and look at that if that's possible. So Paul, if you can mark that as an action very kindly as well, please. Okay, so next was John Roper from Newton. John.
Hi Glenn, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, it was just really to second what Barbara had just said. Actually, down at Newton, we've got a number of, more elderly residents who drive down, walk the dog. So if you could have a first hour for free, that would be ideal for local people. Of course, you've got the option of a yearly pass, which I accept as well. But the charges at Newton at the minute, I think they're very inexpensive. 50 pence an hour, or £2 for the day if you stay more than 4 hours. They're very low. So I would agree with your idea of putting the charges up to bring some revenue back into the county. That was really all. Just.
Yeah, well, thanks, John. I mean, what I can tell you is that the extra that we're going to be charging, a significant proportion of that will go into local services, and that will then help us make sure that we do our enforcement, our civil enforcement, checking on car parking, bins and stuff like that is done in a way that I hope you will see is sufficiently good. So could you, Wendy, will you do the same as Guy? Will you drop me a line after the budget is done, and we'll have a meeting together about Newton with Paul, please?
Well, I do have my hand up, Glenn. John actually got in before me, so I didn't want to labour the point, but Craster and Newton would benefit from a free hour. Because it is really for dog walkers, for local people who want to walk their dogs. So I would just echo that. But I also wanted to say, going off the point, I found this afternoon to be incredibly rewarding, because it's lovely to see all of the different parish councils taking part, able to speak with you as the leader of the council, and really it was down to you. When I first wrote to the cabinet last year after the summer from hell, it was with your enthusiasm that we started the coastal summit off, and so I just wanted to say thank you. And it's lovely to see a lot of my parish councils represented here, and I just think it's a really great thing. And I see the police are here, National Trust, hopefully, I think, and also Ian from AONB. I just think it's a great thing.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm going to bring in Ian in a minute or two, but first, Barbara, is that the remaining hand, or do you want to come back in? Okay. So Terry, is that the old hand, or?
That's the remaining hand. Sorry, I can't find out how to get rid of it. Let's try.
No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Well, look, this is the time. So I'm going to actually ask Ian just to come in now with his thoughts. If Ian's on the call, is he?
Yes, thanks, Glenn.
Ian. over to you.
I haven't really got a great deal more to add, Glenn. It's been a useful session, I think. There's some interesting questions come up. I've been furiously typing away here, so I've got an email that'll come to you all with some answers to some of those questions. But just to pick up a couple of them, cycle parking. We've done a study. Ruth Tweedy and the tourism team at County Hall did a study into cycle parking, and we've got a list of where cycle parking is required and the different types, from lockers to just places to chain your bike to. So that's quite a useful start. We can share that. And the other one was the shuttle bus. I've spoken to Alison Nation. I think Alison's on the call, the chair at Beadnell Parish Council, who set this away. And we've agreed I'll set up a meeting in the autumn with Arriva and Travelshare, the two main operators on the coast, and the County Council's public transport team. And we'll get those guys together and look at how we can probably work with what we've got in terms of the 418 and the X18 rather than compete with the commercial services. So I'll pull that together in the autumn with the relevant parties. But nothing else to add, really.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Okay, does anybody else have anything else to say? Terry, is that a new hand, as they say?
I still haven't got rid of it.
Right, okay. That's fine. Right, can I then, before we go, Mo, is there anything else you want to add that's come up? Okay. Just in a sentence or two, just remind us again of the timetable you're looking at for introducing the...
For the destination management plan?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we're working on that now. So there'll be the short-term one that we talked about that with Paul and Anne Bridges, I noticed, has come on the call as well. So Anne and Paul and I are looking at the high-level communications and the joined-up planning for this year. But we're also in parallel working on the destination management plan for the next 10 years. And I would welcome a conversation with anybody on this call, and we would love to have a separate place sector group where we can actually continually have these conversations and we can explore opportunities as well as issues. So anybody who wants to get involved in that, please contact us. We would be absolutely delighted. Thank you.
Super. Okay, thank you for that, Mo. I am just going back now. If there are no further questions, please, if anyone's got anything they want to raise at all, please do so now, honestly. We really need to get your views on what you've heard today, and if you think that we need to do, we're not doing enough of something, or we need to do something differently. If not now, then, you know how to get in touch with Paul Jones. You've got your local councillors here, who I know you deal with closely, and anyone can always get in touch with me at any time. So on that then, Paul, can I pass back to you if you've got any closing points to make?
Yeah, it was just really just to say we will clearly be having that ongoing dialogue in the run up and to the spring, just to try and finalise and formalise some of the things you've been hearing today and get them actually delivered on the ground, both during the spring and into the summer period. And it is that I think that open communication channel, we need to continue that dialogue. It is going to be a collaborative approach. We need to do that on a joined up basis. So where there are issues, you need to let us know and we'll do our best to resolve them. We also need yourselves to participate in that and to find some of the solutions as well, because it is a collective responsibility. It's not just the county council and all on our table. Yourselves are local representatives and you've got a lot of those good contacts that you can help out and do things in your own local community. And just as to finish off, what I would like to say is that the process that we've gone through here through this session is something that we is effectively best practice, and we've seen that as best practice, and we're having that further one-to-one dialogue with some of the other larger coastal communities, likes of Berwick, likes of Blythe, and along the coast in Northumberland, that have also had issues with tourism over and visitor numbers over the pandemic period, and are using the lessons learned here both in those other coastal communities, but also, as you've heard, rolling that out across the rest of the county. So clearly there were issues in parts of the National Park and round Kielder Forest and other parts, Adrian's Wall last year, and we're working with those partner organisations and the communities in those areas to tackle some of those issues going forward as well. So this has really set the tone for going forward. So thank you very much for your involvement and your input to that. It's been really important.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, absolutely. John, come back to you.
Yeah. Sorry to come back in, Glenn. Is that okay? It was just a couple of things. First of all, to say just to thank you for the, our toilets down at Low Newton, which are kept, in very good order, given the number of people with muddy and sandy feet who trips in and out every hour. Really, you guys do a great job. And last summer, we got in touch with parking enforcement about extra visits, and they did. They came on weekends and extra visits, which really was a big help to Newton as well. I just wanted to pick up one point that Ian mentioned about speaking about 418 and X18. We lost one of our 2 bus services at Newton a few years back when the village became inundated with visitors to the expanded Joiners Arms, and a few years later we got a great investment from the county council for our fabulous new environmental friendly car park at High Newton, which solved the problems, and we got yellow lines in the village, which solved a lot of problems. We've never managed to get the bus service we lost back into Newton, so it was withdrawn really because it was getting blocked on the village green. It couldn't get turned and it was disrupting the timetable basically. So if we could get that bus service back in, that would, as part of what Ian's looking at, that would be fantastic for residents and visitors as well. We got a lot of walkers who use those services. Thank you.
Really, really good point. I'm glad you've raised that. Paul, or will it be Paul or Ian that's going to lead with Arriva on that one?
I'll happily let Ian take a lead on it because he's involved in the transport team. It's a public transport team that are the key players in the OMB on that. So we'll happily support, but they're taking the lead. Thanks.
Okay, so Ian, can I just ask you to I know you meet with Arriva regularly, but could you just raise that and then get back to John and the Newton Parish Council, please?
Yes, certainly, Glenn. I'll throw that into the mix. I think maybe a solution for Newton and some of the other smaller villages, such as Howick, where the large double-decker buses that Arriva run can't get into, might be something like a more frequent 418 that acts as a shuttle, so that could increase capacity into Howicks. But yeah, we'll add it into the conversation.
Okay, that's fine. Right. Well, if there are no other points or questions, I'm going to actually ask Wendy and Guy and Jeff Watson and Paul to stay on this call, because I just want to go back to car parking and the free hour, just to make sure, Barbara, I promise you that we will look at it seriously. I want to just try and catch them when they've got them all together now. So can I say thank you all very much indeed, except for those folk, can I say goodbye to you all? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Glenn.